everyone. Welcome back to the Good Doctor's continuing coverage of Netflix's The Crown. We are on episode 8 of the show that has become that should be called Stories of Men Around the Crown. Because all this episode is about the Duke of Windsor and the Prince of Wales.
I'm gonna call it Knocked the Crown. Welcome to our continuing coverage of Knocked
the Crown.
Or not the person currently wearing the crown, which is a little bit wordier, but.
So the Duke of Windsor.
Cool. Favorite.
I stopped caring about, I don't know, during when I watched the King's speech. That's around the time when I stopped caring about the Duke of Windsor.
Predates the actual show The Crown when I stopped caring about Edward whatever.
And I will tell you, the show has done nothing to change my opinion of him. Absolutely not. It has done nothing to change my opinion of Wallace Simpson. They were Nazis and they made choices, and I don't need, but I just kept out loud to my television while this episode started. I said, Peter Morgan, stop trying to make fetch happen.
I forgot they were not so secret Nazis.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I remember that all the time. So
also, because there's a part, I wrote down you made a choice because I was really in all caps at one stage, because he said something about maybe I can finally redeem my reputation that was ruined. And I was like, you made a choice. Why are we rehashing everything that we talked about in the first 2 seasons?
I don't get it. So if you want to talk about the Duke of Windsor dying, which you should, because it was a significant event in the life of the royal family. Cool.
100%.
We could be doing that from Elizabeth's perspective. And there was a kind of a nice scene. I'm glad that he asked her for forgiveness. Of course, we have no record that he did that, but I'm glad that we saw that. But really the purpose of this episode was to prove to us that the Duke of Windsor understands Charles more than his own mother does, which was probably true. I think I understand Charles better than his mother does.
Yeah, that's true.
And cool. But all of this could just be told, I don't know, a different way. That's just what I kept thinking. Okay, so I don't need to see the Japanese ambassador, although Wallace Simpson's dress in that scene was pretty cool. I don't need to see any of that. I don't need to see the doctor's appointments.
No.
This could be a conversation between Philip and Elizabeth, because those conversations crackle.
I love it.
Tobias and Olivia very clearly like working together. So have them bitch about him together.
I know. And even for me, it's even in the scenes that she's in, she's not allowed to say anything.
Yep.
So I love that, first of all, her private secretary, Michael Aldine, retires and nobody says anything.
You got him a clock. I loved that. Yeah.
So Martin, our dear Martin, comes in and is talking to her. And even in this whole scene, she doesn't say anything. And
she literally just says, you got him a clock. That is all she says. Yeah.
All she says. And Prince Philip gets all the good lines. And if we're going to invent history around this person, this woman that we know very little about personally, let's give her some cracking things to say. Earlier in the season when she totally tore down that guy that was the secret spy, her painting
dude
guy.
Yeah,
she tore him a new one. That didn't really happen, but was awesome that it did. And I'm just again, we're wasting Olivia Colman, which makes me so angry.
Yeah. It just doesn't. The summary to me of this episode is exactly what I said as I opened. Yeah. This is now the story of men around the crown. And we get Charles and I loved Anne in this episode.
Yeah,
I was happy to see Andrew Parker Bowles. That's a really interesting little intrigue that we have no proof of, but at least it's good television.
Yeah.
But again, so watching this is going to be like watching a slow moving train crash, because I have no idea why they don't, what the show is going to tell us, why they don't let him marry Camilla. It's going to be interesting to see what the show does with that.
Because my understanding historically was that she was a commoner.
Correct. So we'll see if that's what plays out.
I don't buy this invention of Charles as a revolutionary again.
No.
that has been fabricated in these letters. We have no historical record of these letters between the Duke of Windsor and Prince Charles. I don't buy him having this overwhelming sympathy for the Duke of Windsor and, you know, I will finally get what was stolen from you, or something ridiculous that he said.
And I was even thinking, like, earlier in the investiture episode, he tried to, like, again, like, made a joke about giving the crown to Anne. Like, I don't think he wants this either. And that's Edward's fault. So, like, why would he be so into Edward? Like,
yeah, it was, especially, like, he's grown up in a family that has not thought kindly of the Duke of Windsor. And
at best, they're neutral. I mean, like, Philip hates him. Grandmom hates him. Mom is neutral, but doesn't love him.
They never see him. Yeah, it was just, again, like, fabricated drama, which I didn't understand the need for. I don't know why we're putting Charles into this position. Spoiler alert, everybody, Charles does not become a radical revolutionary within the monarchy. Charles has towed the line every day of his life from before this episode and the death of his uncle until present time, aside from the controversy over the woman he was forced to marry and his ongoing relationship with the woman he was clearly in love with. Other than that, he has been a good little boy and done what he has been told to do, including marrying Diana, whom he did not love. Was entirely because his family told him he had to. So why he has to be this, like, radical, if anybody thinks that this man is gonna take the throne whenever Elizabeth dies and, like, change the monarchy, no, it's silly.
Yeah.
So
again, we have 10 hours to tell a story.
Yeah.
You wasted at least 25 minutes of this one with filler.
Why I needed to see Olivia Colman doing a puzzle.
I was more okay with that than the doctor visit. The doctor visit is what I was like, this is okay, fine. I don't need to see him coughing up blood. I don't need to see any of this. This story is not about him.
It could have all been done. I loved the scene with Charles and Camilla where he clearly, like, reveals his deepest soul to her.
Yeah, and then the birthday dinner was great. Yeah.
He's waiting for the queen to die so that he can be fully alive. Fascinating.
Because I totally get that. Like, totally get that. Yep.
Yeah, because his life has no meaning, because his whole life he's been prepared to be this thing that he can't be until his mother dies. Like, talk about a mind fuck. It was so fascinating. Obviously he played it off as a joke to kind of, like, play it off as a joke, but it was not a joke at all. So I thought that was brilliantly done. And then, for me, it could have been condensed a lot, because this episode took place over a couple of years in Northern Ireland, where things were very, very, very bad. Particularly, the Duke of Windsor died in May of 1972. 1972 was the most violent year in the Troubles and the conflict in Northern Ireland. Most injuries, most deaths of civilians and army personnel alike, civilians and non-civilians. Particularly, two events happen bookending the death of the Duke of Windsor that I feel like would have maybe been a good thing to talk about. In January of 1972, we have an anti-internment march. Internment had been introduced in August of 1971.
And what's internment, Erin?
Internment, yes. Sorry, I forget that not everybody knows what internment is. Internment without trial. So you can just pick people up off the street and incarcerate them without putting them through due process. So it was introduced in Northern Ireland several times throughout the 20th century when there were uprisings of civil disobedience and civil unrest. So it was introduced and implemented by the British Army in August of 1971, and we had a series of protests over the introduction of internment, culminating with this march in January of 1972 in the city of Derry. in Northern Ireland, where the British Army was brought in to stop the march from reaching its culmination point at the Guildhall Square in Derry, and the paratroop regiment of the British Army opened fire on British civilians. I will say this again, British civilians, killing immediately 13. 14th person would die later from their wounds. 28 people in total were shot and or killed at a peaceful demonstration. This is a major, major event in British history that is not given space and or talked about. There was a £1 billion inquiry into the role of the British Army. David Cameron, as Prime Minister, apologized on behalf of the British government to the people of Derry and the families and the victims and survivors of Bloody Sunday for the
Think
role.
about how many other times in history a British Prime Minister has apologized for anything.
Has apologized on the floor of the House of Parliament. The result of the inquiry was to find that the British soldiers, particularly the paratroopers, were at fault for what happened, and it was not necessary to open fire and shoot civilians in the back as they ran away, which is what happened. So that happened in January of 1972, and the province spiraled further into disarray. By March of 1972, so 2 months before the Duke of Windsor died, for those of you playing at home, the government in Northern Ireland is completely dissolved, and the British government, Parliament, has to take over ruling Northern Ireland. It's called direct rule. It was implemented in March of 1972, and it lasted all the way until 2001, roughly, but effectively 2007. Again, really big deal. Really big deal. Westminster, the Prime Minister we were introduced to in previous episodes, Edward Heath, has now become the governing force in Northern Ireland.
A place he has never been, as far as at this point in the historical record. I think I read that once.
I'm just looking at the timeline here. The Abercorn bomb happened in March of 1972, killing 2 people and injuring 130. March of 1972. May, we have a lot of things happening in May.
And this is all just people understand too, like these are highlights and we talk about the big events, but the daily trauma of life in Northern Ireland was not insignificant. It's still something that is affecting the province since there's never been any closure. There's not any formal way for people really to deal with secondary or primary trauma. This is significant. Erin and I both have friends and colleagues and research contacts that were directly involved in various events, but we have significantly more who were never directly involved in events. Mm-hmm. And still, I mean, you can see the PTSD from 4 miles away. And to have their stories completely ignored in this space is, as we've said before, painful.
Yeah, I really couldn't have said it any better. It's very disappointing, and I'm not sure I necessarily expected anything different to occur, but for me it seems like a major missed opportunity to start a conversation that doesn't generally happen on British television, that doesn't generally happen with the British public, to introduce stories of people who are British citizens, many of whom pledge loyalty to that British crown and that British state, many of whom don't, should be said.
And some of whom are completely neutral.
Yeah, these are people who are, for choice or otherwise, born British citizens of the United Kingdom, and not given the space to have their stories and told in a way that this show has shown us it is capable of being very empathetic towards the inherent humanity of these royal people, and also commoners and members of the British public, British citizens, whether they be coal miners or politicians or Welsh nationalists or Welsh coal miners this season particularly. So that was my it was hard for me when I looked up when the Duke of Windsor died and I saw that it was May 1972.
Yeah, I got tired of this episode real quick. So everything except the stuff with Charles and Camilla, I did enjoy that. And I liked the stuff with Andrew and Aunt. So like the 4 kids, let's call them the 4 kids, they were charming. I was very over the time I was forced to spend with Wallace Simpson and the Duke of Windsor. Like I said, I haven't cared since at least the year of our Lord 2009, if I cared then. So
I don't know. Maybe that's another generational thing that. But Peter Morgan doesn't remember the abdication. I don't think he was born yet. Like, why is this like? Maybe because we're not British, we don't understand why abdication is such a big freaking deal. I don't understand the obsession with the Duke of Windsor and Wallace Simpson. Like, it happened. It was terrible. I totally understand the implications for Elizabeth's father and for Elizabeth and for Charles, and that sucks. But like, why do I?
We told this story already. Let's move on.
Yeah. Yet again, one of our recurring themes for season 3. We told the story already. We told this story in season 1 and season 2. Why are we telling it again? There are other stories we could be telling.
And on that note,
I think we're done with episode 8. We only have 2 more left, you guys. Can't imagine what's going to happen.
Nothing that's not going to make us rant, I'm sure. So we'll see you for our anger-making content next time.
Bye.